Welcome to episode 4 of my Learning FireRed series, and up until this point we have done runs with all of the regular starter Pokemon. So I figured we should also give the Pikachu-Line a try because it's basically an honorary starter. Also, it's going to give me a great sense of how electric types fare with this game, and I'm hoping that they have a little bit easier time than they did in Yellow version. Unfortunately, unlike the other starters, the Pikachu-Line has a medium fast growth rate, which is not very good for the early game, but it's better for the late game. For base stats, Pikachu is going to start out with 35 HP, 55 attack, 30 defense, 40 special attack, 50 special defense, and 90 speed. The one thing I always find surprising about Pikachu is that it has more physical attack than special attack. However, once it evolves to Raichu, this is no longer the case. Then it has 60 HP, 90 attack, 55 defense, 90 special attack, 80 special defense, and 100 speed. When I think about Raichu, I don't think of it as a balanced attacker, but that's how it's designed. Alright, so let's go into the battle against the rival in the lab. I chose to have him pick Bulbasaur today because, after all, the grass type resists electric type damage, and you can really see that here in the lab battle. Thundershock is doing so little, so unless the Bulbasaur just spams Growl, I am not going to be able to take the win here, and unfortunately I don't get the luck I need, so I'm not going to get any experience from this fight. Okay, so now let's talk about Pikachu's move pool in Generation 3. It starts with Thundershock and Growl, and then through level up, it gets Thunderbolt, Agility, which isn't going to be very helpful in Generation 3, and finally Light Screen. Unfortunately for this run, my rules ban the use of Double Team until level 100. This is a new addition that I made to my rules starting in 2023. I really don't like evasion moves. They're so broken, and I think that they make these challenges a lot less fun to play as well as to watch. So that's why I'm not going to be using it. But that means today I'm going to have to get through Brock with a combination of Growl, Tail Whip, Quick Attack, and probably Slam. However, once I clear him, Pikachu is going to get access to a lot more moves through TM and Tutors. Unfortunately, the type diversity of these moves is not great. I have access to Iron Tail, Dig, and Brick Break, giving me at least solutions for some of the rock ground types. However, beyond that, Pikachu mostly just has electric and normal moves, which is typical of electric types and is usually why they struggle in this solo format. Now, I should mention the fact that when I get to Cerulean City, I'm probably going to use a Thunderstone right away. When this occurs, Raichu will not be able to learn any new moves through level up. However, I'll probably be approaching level 40 at that point, and so I'm really only walling myself off from Thunder and Light Screen. After all, Raichu has access to all the TMs and Tutor moves that Pikachu does. Alright, so with that, I think it's time to talk about the early game. I spend time training on Route 1 until Pikachu levels up to level 10. I figured that this would be enough to defeat the rival on Route 22 to gain a little bit more experience so I'm better prepared for Brock. Okay, so here we go. The rival always leads with his Pidgey in these games, which turns out to be really annoying because it has Sand Attack. It also survives my Thundershock and lowers my accuracy right away. Now, if you've been keeping up on my videos, you'll notice that there's no accuracy pop-up in FireRed and Leaf Green. That's just because this video was filmed a long time ago. The issues that I was having with my voice for a while prevented me from recording this voiceover until now, so that's why this video is going to look a little bit out of date. Okay, so Pikachu's taken some damage. Luckily, Static, my ability, activates and paralyzes the Pidgey. I knock it out with Thundershock, and then he sends in Bulbasaur, and once again, Thundershock is doing almost nothing to this thing, so yeah, that is going to be my first reset. Alright, I'm going to try this fight again. I will mention that I don't count the lab loss as a reset because the game does allow you to proceed even if you lose that fight. In the next battle, I make it back to the Bulbasaur, paralyze it early, which is great, and then things get really close. We're trading Thundershocks and Tackles. I get it to red health first. It hits me with Tackle, taking Pikachu down to 2 hit points. I go for Thundershock. It's not enough to finish it off. Bulbasaur uses Tackle, and with that, Pikachu faints again. Okay, so instead of trying that again, let's go to the forest and fight some bug catchers for some easy experience. After all, when I level up to level 11, I'm going to get access to Quick Attack. That would probably make defeating the Bulbasaur much easier. However, learning this move is a bit tricky because I have to choose a move to get rid of, and Growl and Tail Whip are both useful against Brock, but I want to keep Thundershock and Thunder Wave for later in the playthrough. In the end, I decide to part with Growl. So as I proceed through the forest, I want to knock out all the wild Pokemon I come across for experience. I actually run into a Pikachu first, which is quite rare. I finish it off, and then in my next encounter, I run into another Pikachu. This time, I go for Quick Attack against it and 2-hit, but this activates the other Pikachu's static, paralyzing my Pikachu, which is very frustrating. So what I learned here was whenever I encounter a Pikachu, I should just run away because I don't want to get paralyzed and have to heal at the Pokemon Center or use a healing item. You might be a little bit confused about this if you're more familiar with modern Pokemon games, but in these games, electric types can get paralyzed just like any other Pokemon. Alright, so now let's settle in for what is going to be a very long training session. I am 100% convinced that I'm not going to be able to beat Brock under level 20. After all, both of his rock types have rock type moves in this game, so I have to treat him with respect. So once I get to level 20, I have the chance to learn Slam, and in this case, I think that I have to replace Quick Attack so that I still have access to Tail Whip to lower his defenses. And now, with my moveset ready to go, let's see how Brock is. He leads with a Geodude. I immediately go for Slam to see how much damage it does, and it looks like it's about a 6th. Luckily, the Geodude goes for Tackle right away, and oh, I didn't know this, but it can actually get paralyzed by static, even though it is a ground type. That interaction really doesn't seem like it should happen. Funnily enough, I actually looked this effect up, and it still works on ground type Pokemon even to this day. So now that I have Paralysis helping me to cause Geodude to miss every once in a while, I am able to take it out and retain green health for Brock's ace, Onix. I go for Slam first turn, it doesn't do very much, but at least it isn't like 1 HP of damage. The Onix starts using Rock Tomb, which is lowering my speed, but Pikachu is so fast that even after 2, I am still faster than the Onix, which by the way is not very slow to start with. However, it hits its 3rd Rock Tomb, and now my speed is lower than the Onix, and I also don't have very much health left over, so this is looking like it's going to be a loss. Onix goes for Tackle, doing a little bit of damage. I still haven't got it out of green health by the time it takes me down to red. However, that is the moment that Static activates. My Slam misses, which is just so frustrating. And now because the Onix is paralyzed, I am faster than it once again. It can't move. I hit Slam. Rock Tomb misses. I hit another Slam. It's paralyzed again. My Slam takes it down to red health. Onix is paralyzed, Pikachu hits Slam, and with that, I have defeated Brock on my first attempt. Alright, so I am heading out of Pewter City now, and here I can obtain the running shoes, which by the way feels way too late. Why does the game give you a movement speed buff after the first gym? You should just get this from the start. On Route 3, I'm going to fight the minimum number of trainers because I did so much training in the early game. By the way, I think it's worth noting that Youngster Ben is actually optional in these games, so there are only 3 mandatory trainers on this entire route, whereas in Generation 1, there are 4 mandatory trainers. Now heading towards Mount Moon, I want to point out a hidden item that I've just learned about, and it's going to be useful later on in the playthrough. So here, on this little dark spot on the grass, I can pick up the Person Berry. In Mount Moon, I pick up the rare candy, as well as the Dome Fossil, of course. This is always the right pick. Outside of the cave, I talk to the Move Tutor so that Pikachu can learn Mega Punch, and then I'm ready to go up against the rival on Nugget Bridge. So, this battle should not be that bad. After all, he leads with Pidgeotto, and I have Thunder Shock. Unfortunately, this move is so weak that it only does half to the bird. It strikes back with, of course, Sand Attack. My next Thunder Shock misses, it hits Tackle, and then I finish it off. Next, he chooses to send in Rattata. I go for Mega Punch because Pikachu again has higher attack than special attack, and I also have Brock's badge. I take it out with 1 hit. He sends in Abra next, and I also finish it off in 1 turn. All that's left over is his Bulbasaur. How bad can this be now that I have Mega Punch? I do over 1/3 to it in 1 turn. It poisons me. My Mega Punch misses. It seeds me with Leech Seed, draining my health in combination with Poison, which is actually doing a lot every turn. However, I am going to knock it out with 2 more hits, so this should be fine. Bulbasaur goes for Vine Whip, and it gets a critical hit, knocking Pikachu out. Alright, so apparently the rival is actually really hard for Pikachu to defeat. Luckily in the next fight I don't have my accuracy lowered. However, Mega Punch doesn't one-hit the Rattata, so it lowers my defense before I finish it off. The Abra is of course free, and then Bulbasaur comes in again. It poisons me, I take it down to red health, and this time I am able to defeat it. Alright, so now let's just cut directly into the Misty battle. My Pikachu is level 23. I don't think I'm going to have any problems here. Still though, Thundershock is quite weak, and it doesn't knock the Staryu out in one turn. It uses Harden, she uses a Super Potion, I hit with another Thundershock, and this time I get a critical hit, finishing her lead off. Okay, so it's time for her ace, Starmie. I go for Thundershock, it does less than half. Starmie hits Water Pulse, doing almost half to Pikachu, and it also gets the Confusion. And then it sunk in just how much better Starmie's moveset is in Fire Red and Leaf Green when compared to Generation 1. Because it just heals itself to full with Recover. I hit myself in Confusion twice, and then it knocks Pikachu out. Alright, so what I should do instead is train up 3 more levels to 26 where I can learn Thunderbolt. I'm going to put it in the place of Tail Whip just so I have a little bit more PP. With this more powerful move, I should be able to defeat Misty. Now I can one-hit the Staryu, Starmie comes out, I go for Thunderbolt, and it gets the one hit as well. Alright, so I've earned myself the second badge. Outside of Cerulean City, I defeat the Rocket and obtain the Dig TM. This is going to be useful for Pikachu, so I teach it right away in the place of Thunder Wave. Turns out that move wasn't actually useful at all. On the SSN, I make sure to pick up the TM for Brick Break, and then I'm ready to go up against the rival again. Okay, so with Thunderbolt, he should be easy. This Pidgeotto is going to go down in one hit. It does. I move on to the Raticate, which has the best sprite ever. Thunderbolt 1 hits, he sends in Kadabra, I go for Thunderbolt again, and once again it 1 hits. And now it's time for Ivysaur. Obviously Mega Punch is the best choice here, and it doesn't look like it's going to 2-hit, which is a little bit frustrating, but luckily the Grass type is just trying to set up with Poison Powder and Leech Seed, which gives me the time to hit the 2 more Mega Punches that I need. Still, it was actually kind of a close fight. I'm really hoping that these battles against him get easier once I've evolved to a Raichu. Now, let's take on Surge. With Dig, I should have no problems here, plus I'm faster than all of his Pokemon. Unfortunately, the Ground-type move doesn't one-shot the Voltorb, which doesn't give me confidence for the rest of his Pokemon. To save PP and to hopefully not have him use another Super Potion, I just knock this thing out with 2 uses of Thunderbolt. He sends in Pikachu, I go for Dig, it sets up Double Team. Luckily, I don't miss, finishing it off in a single hit, and now it's time for Raichu. I kind of like the fact that Surge has Double Team, which is a good counter to Dig at this point in the game. It is also a good counter to Mega Punch, which does not have particularly good accuracy. Luckily, he just tries Thunder Wave on the first turn, and I take the Raichu down to yellow health. After that though, it goes for Double Team, which could mean that it would get 2 before my next Dig, but when I'm underground, once again the Raichu uses Thunder Wave, my Dig connects, and with that I have earned myself the 3rd badge. Up next is Dudley, the hiker in Rock Tunnel, and his rock types suggest to me that it's probably time to teach Pikachu Brick Break in the place of Thundershock. Luckily for me though, in Fire Red and Leaf Green, none of his Pokemon actually know Self-Destruct. However, they do know Magnitude, and that's why I need Brick Break, because going underground is just far too risky. I'm able to take the first Geodude out in a single hit, he sends in his second one, and it just barely survives. Still, it goes for Defense Curl, so I polish it off without taking any damage, and then Pikachu levels up to level 33. I have the chance to learn Agility here, but this evolutionary line is so fast anyways that I don't think this move is going to be helpful at all. After all, this is Generation 3, and the badge boost glitch is something from the distant past. I take the Graveler out with 2 hits, and I've finally made it to Celadon City. Here, I decided to be as efficient as possible, so I'm like, I'll grab the PP up, then head into the Rocket hideout, defeat all the trainers in here, and after that, I'll go to the department store with the maximum amount of money, and then I'll buy the Thunderstone and evolve Pikachu. However, the battle against this Team Rocket Grunt, by the way, the text for his name is way too long. Yes, this is Grunt number 16, so I'll have to fix that for future videos. In this case, though, the battle against this random NPC gets way too close, and as a result, I backtrack to the department store, grab a Thunderstone, and evolve to Raichu. By the way, I just want to give a huge shout out to Brian, who has been doing all the thumbnail art for my videos this year. He did this art for Raichu, and I absolutely love it. Now, you might have thought that Giovanni would be tricky for Raichu, but with Brick Break and Dig, he really isn't. With him out of the way, I head back to Lavender Town, and I'm going to go south from here because in the place of Swift is now the TM for Return, and this is going to be an excellent upgrade for Mega Punch. With it on my moveset, I go up against the rival in Pokemon Tower. Okay, he leads with Pidgeotto. Thunderbolt is going to get the one hit. It does. Next he sends in Gyarados, which has Intimidate, lowering Raichu's attack, but luckily I'm going to use Thunderbolt on this thing and knock it out in one turn. Now here's a frustrating fact with the rival's team when he chooses Bulbasaur, and that's the fact that he has both Gyarados and Growlithe, meaning that my attack gets lowered twice by Intimidate. However, in this battle, I don't think that that is a huge issue because even the Kadabra goes down to a single hit from Thunderbolt. However, the Ivysaur could be a problem. Thunderbolt does just more than a third. It uses Sleep Powder, putting me to sleep, and then starts to hit with Razor Leaf. Luckily, right when I get taken to yellow health, I wake up, hit Thunderbolt, Ivysaur doesn't go for Sleep Powder again, and I finish it off. So now let's take on Erika. After all, I'm almost level 40, and her Pokemon are under level 30. I figured that I could do this with Return, but it only does half, and I get paralyzed on the first turn. It's pretty annoying. I finish off the Victory Bell with my next Return that hits, and then she sends in Tangela. The problem here is that I'm just taking too much damage and not moving frequently enough that I'm getting whittled down. By the time the Vileplume comes out, I am one turn behind where I would need to be to take the victory. So if I don't get paralyzed right away, this will be much better, and I can prepare for that by using the Cherry Berry. This way I heal my paralysis, knock the Victory Bell out, and move on to the Tangela. It then poisons me, which is much better than being paralyzed, and now the Vileplume can't even put me to sleep. As a result, I am able to just barely finish it off and take the victory over Erika, earning myself the 4th badge. So with that finished off, I head down Cycling Road, explore the Safari Zone, and after that's finished, I fly out of here and head back to Fuchsia City so that I can take on Koga next. I have to say, one thing that's annoying about his gym is the fact that this second tamer is now a spinning trainer. So while he isn't mandatory, he sometimes catches you, and today he catches me. He leads with Sand Slash, which is so annoying for Raichu. For whatever reason, I was like, yeah, Brick Break makes more sense than Return. Should have been using Return here. Sand Slash poisons me, lowers my accuracy. I knock it out, I have half health left over. Then I get intimidated by the Arbok. I don't want to use Dig because it's a 2-turn move and I have poison. And if I miss, then the fight is definitely going to be over. I go for Thunderbolt. It takes the Arbok down to red health. Then my Thunderbolt misses. I get hit by Poison Sting. Take poison damage down to 1 HP. And then on the next turn, my Thunderbolt misses. So yeah, Raichu gets a loss to a random tamer in Koga's gym. Granted, I did not play that very well, and he is easy to defeat on my next attempt. Alright, so with that embarrassment behind me, now let's take on Koga. I expect that this fight should be pretty easy because I have Dig, plus the Coughing do not have particularly high special defense, so using Thunderbolt one-hits them. Next, Koga sends in Muck. I decided to just stick with Thunderbolt here and try and knock it out. The annoying thing was that Sludge is actually dealing a lot of damage, and Koga uses a Hyper Potion, delaying my knockout, which means the Muck takes me all the way down to red health, and then Koga uses a second Hyper Potion. So that's it, one loss to Koga. So what I'm going to try to do now is Thunderbolt first turn in case I get paralysis, and then I'm going to use Dig to do maximum damage. However, this doesn't even knock the Muck out. Luckily, when its Sludge poisons me, my Pecha Berry heals it, Koga uses a Hyper Potion, and then I get a critical hit with Thunderbolt, which allows me to take it out. The next Coughing goes down to a single Thunderbolt, and all that's left is Wheezing. I'm not really afraid of this thing because it doesn't have Self-Destruct or Explosion. Thunderbolt does more than half. It poisons me with Sludge, but that's not enough, and so I've earned myself the 5th badge. And with it comes a boost to my defense stat. By the way, for future videos, I will have the little badge icons that indicate the badge boosts that I'm currently receiving. This was an important feature for me to add for later videos, just because the badge boosts are different in Generation 1. After all, Koga's badge gives a speed boost, not a defense boost like it does in this case. Alright, so now let's take on the rival in Silph. In this case, the Pidgeot actually moves first because it uses Quick Attack, doing some damage before I knock it out. Now it's time to get intimidated into oblivion. Luckily, Thunderbolt is going to knock out both the Gyarados and then the Growlithe. After that, he sends in Alakazam. I find it interesting that this thing only has 93 speed. The Kadabra in yellow version has 84 speed, so this Pokemon that's fully evolved is not actually that much faster. And of course, Raichu moves first, hits Thunderbolt, and gets a critical hit, knocking it out. Alright, all that's left is Venusaur. I really like this sprite, by the way. It looks so intimidating how it's like standing. Just so good. It's a little bit disappointing now thinking about the 3D models because the Pokemon just seem far less dynamic. And I know that's kind of strange because they actually move around, but all the poses that they put the Pokemon into in these sprites are so dynamic and full of energy. Because I've been intimidated twice, I think Thunderbolt is the best option here, and through chip damage, I eventually do manage to get the job done. Okay, moving on to Giovanni. I thought I was going to one-hit the Nidorino, but it takes 2 turns to knock out. After that, it's time for Nidoqueen. I go for Dig here. Unfortunately, I get poisoned by Poison Sting, and my Dig does not 2-hit, and that means I take so much chip damage before the Kangaskhan comes out. Thunderbolt does do more than half, but I take damage from Rage and Poison, so that's it. Alright, as I go up against Giovanni again, I think it is time to check in with how this playthrough is going. And the answer is not very well. It took roughly 28 minutes to beat Brock, and since then I've had a lot of small resets along the way. Of course, with the current data that I have, peak performance in FireRed looks like a time around 1 hour and 20 minutes. And right now, Raichu is about to hit that time. Luckily, I'm not going to be delayed here any longer because I just barely managed to defeat Giovanni this time. And that means I'm off to fight Blaine next. Now, defeating him is going to be critical for Raichu. After all, right now at the beginning of the fight, you can see that my attack stat is higher than my special attack stat. That's because Blaine's badge boosts my special attack and my special defense. I get intimidated, which is not nice, and that's really the main reason I want the special attack boost, because I want to stop using physical moves as soon as is possible. After all, Dig can't even one-shot the Growlithe, but Thunderbolt can. Unfortunately, the Ponyta survives on a sliver of health, strikes back with Fire Blast, Blaine uses a Hyper Potion, my next Thunderbolt fails to KO, but I move first and knock it out. Okay, time for the Rapidash. Thunderbolt does more than half, Rapidash hits Fire Blast, taking me to yellow health, and then I finish it off. I get intimidated again by Arcanine, I go for Thunderbolt, it doesn't do half, Blaine hits Fire Blast, and Raichu goes down. Okay, that's annoying. Let's fight some of the trainers in his gym and level up a little bit more. I also fight some trainers at sea in the surrounding areas to take Raichu up to level 50, and then I come back to face Blaine again. Over 2 damage rounding thresholds, I can of course one-hit both the Growlithe and the Ponyta. That means I don't take any damage until the Rapidash, and now I have green health left over for the Arcanine. I'm doing half to it, it misses its attack, and as a result I'm able to finish Blaine off and earn myself my special attack and special defense boost. Next of course is Sabrina, and here I learned that my overlay is broken for Mr. Mime, so in post let's just add Mr. Mime in over there. Alright. That's looking better. By the way, I should mention that Mr. Mime and Farfetch'd specifically always mess software up. This is because the formatting of their names. Mr. Mime has both a dot and a space in its species, and Farfetch'd has an apostrophe. I'm saying all this now because Sabrina is not very hard until the Venomoth comes out. It's a rock type, of course, so it's just refusing to get knocked out by my return. Sabrina heals it, and then I finally manage to take this behemoth out. Now it's time for her ace, Alakazam. However, this thing does not have impressive defenses. I go for return and finish it off in one hit. Okay, so let's pause. I want to mention something about how I was filming this video. I was only filming the battles and spots that I thought were important. This leads to a faster production process, but it also creates moments like this where a random cool trainer in Giovanni's gym knocks me out. So yeah, I got this frame, which is Raichu fainting. Look at this team. This is not the team from Generation 1, by the way. I did not expect so many ground types on a single trainer's team. Okay, so let's go back into the fight against him. Oh, by the way, his name is Warren, which I think is very fitting for a ground type trainer. Anyways, I hope I'm going to be able to get through this. By the time I reach the Rhyhorn, my defense has been lowered 2 stages. It lowers my speed 2 stages, but luckily I'm still faster than the following 2 Pokemon. I go for Dig on the Nidorina. It doesn't knock it out. Poison Point poisons me, I get hit by Double Kick, Static paralyzes Nidorina, I take poison damage, then Warren uses a Hyper Potion, I use Thunderbolt, and that knocks the Nidorina out. So with Raichu, it really seems like just spamming Thunderbolt is the best play. Dig is really not helping that much. However, Nidoqueen is last, and I can't use Thunderbolt against it. I go for Return, and two of them just barely don't knock it out because I'm taking poison damage, and the Nidoqueen gets one more hit in. Raichu goes down again. Now, I wish I had good news here, but basically the exact same thing plays out in the next fight, and I lose again. I have to say I was a little bit scared about Giovanni because he is a ground-type specialist. However, I wasn't ready to be walled by another trainer in his gym. So I guess I'll go and do some training up to level 53, and hopefully this will give me the 2-hit on the Nidoqueen. In the next battle against Cool Trainer Warren, something really discouraging happens. I get my defense lowered by the first Marowak. After I knock it out, the second Marowak goes for Bone Meringue, and this takes me down to yellow health, so that's really not good. Luckily, I get a critical hit on the Rhyhorn, allowing me to knock it out in a single hit. Nidorina goes down to a single Thunderbolt, and now I'm back to the Nidoqueen. Okay, please get knocked out in 2 hits. I go for Dig, it takes it under half health, and I get poisoned by Poison Point. I actually looked this ability up because I was like, what is the chance that this poisons me? It is a 30% chance. I guess I'm getting a little bit unlucky here. I take poison damage down to 2 hit points, and then I have to use Return because if I use Dig, I'm gonna get knocked out. And in this case, Return does enough damage, and I have finally defeated Warren and made it to Giovanni. Now, the bulk of my experience is in Pokemon Yellow, and in that game, Giovanni walls electric types so hard. I specifically have to make a rule exception, allow electric types to use Mimic to steal Persian's Double Team, for me to have any hope of defeating him at reasonable levels. I think that if electric types weren't allowed to use that strategy in Pokemon Yellow, they would undoubtedly be the worst type in the game. Yes, even worse than the fighting and poison type. However, in Fire Red, that strategy doesn't exist, so I'm going to have to be able to get through this with Brick Break, Dig, and Return. Luckily for me, the Rhyhorn isn't an issue to take out. However, it uses Scary Face, meaning the Dugtrio is faster than Raichu, and it hits a massive Earthquake, doing half. Luckily, my Return takes it out, and then Giovanni sends in the first of his Nidos, Nidoqueen. Now here's the thing. Dig is going to do the most damage to it, but when I go underground, I immediately realize my mistake. Nidoqueen goes for Earthquake, doing double damage, and Raichu faints. I get knocked out by Nidoking next, and so I think it's time to do some more training. After all, there's this big, swimmer party out here south of Fuchsia City. Might as well knock all of them out for a lot of experience and take Raichu up to level 55. Still, at this level, I can't one-hit the Rhyhorn. It's going to take a while, maybe like level 63 or 65 to be able to do that. That means I get hit by Scary Face, have to tank a hit from the Dugtrio. Luckily, this time it only uses Slash. I make it to the Nidoqueen, and Return is going to 2-hit, but after taking damage from its Earthquake, I only have yellow health left over for the Nidoking. Return does half, and its Earthquake polishes me off. Alright, let's use some rare candies, go up to level 63, and see if this gives Brick Break the one hit on the Rhyhorn. And in this case, the answer is no. It just takes Rhyhorn to red health. I get hit by Scary Face. At this level with my speed cut, I have 6 less speed than the Dugtrio, so I'm gonna take a hit from it. Luckily, its Earthquake isn't doing half anymore, so I make it to the Nidoqueen with green health. However, Poison Point activates, which is so frustrating because I have to spend a lot more turns in the battle to knock out his Nidoking and his ace Rhyhorn. Yes, I said that correctly. His ace Pokemon is a Rhyhorn in this game. But we're not even going to see it in this battle because poison damage finishes me off when the Nidoking comes out. So I use the rare candies after I saved, meaning when I reset, I am back at level 55. I'm going to do some training at this lower level and then see after rare candies if I can one-hit the Rhyhorn at level 68. And now I get it. Okay, perfect. That means I have full speed for the Dugtrio, so I can knock it out with a single return and get to the Nidoqueen without taking any damage. However, I'm not going to knock it out with one hit, but its Earthquake only does a third to me. So I've made it to the Nidoking with green health. Return takes it to red health. Raichu takes damage down to yellow health, but this means I'm able to knock it out and finally move on to Giovanni's ace. But this Rhyhorn is 5 levels higher, and so Brick Break isn't able to get the one hit. Giovanni strikes back with Earthquake, and Raichu faints. Okay, so I lost a couple more times here, and then I decided that I have to train. Honestly, when I started out on this challenge, the fact that I had Brick Break and Dig just made me think that this wouldn't be a problem. However, it really is. Looking through Raichu's move pool, there isn't really a good option. You might ask, why don't you use Hidden Power Water? After all, that's a special move and it'll do super effective damage to all of Giovanni's Pokemon. Well, in order to access Hidden Power Water, you need Pickup, and I specifically banned Pickup in my Emerald runs because of how random it is. It just isn't fair if I'm picking up items like rare candies, and certain Pokemon get more of them than other Pokemon, making those runs easier. Now, in FireRed and Leaf Green, the Pickup ability mostly focuses on obtaining berries, with a small percent chance for items like PP ups and rare candies, as well as hidden power. So there's a 5% chance that I would pick this TM up. However, with my experience in Pokemon Crystal, Hidden Power has not been the most interesting move to use in these solo playthroughs, so I prefer to just leave the ability Pickup as a banned ability unless my solo Pokemon has it. So an example of a run where Hidden Power would be accessible would be if I ran with a Pokemon like Zigzagoon. So as a result, Raichu is going to need to continue grinding. Hopefully now at level 70, I am going to be able to defeat Giovanni. Now as you watch the amount of damage that I'm doing to his Nidos, you might ask, why not use an item like the Silk Scarf to boost Return's damage? Well, that isn't possible either because the Silk Scarf is obtained on one of the later Sevi Islands that I don't have access to yet. And as a result, I am still losing this battle. In the next fight, I make it back to his final Rhyhorn. I go for Brick Break at level 70, and it just barely doesn't KO. I tried this fight again, and again, and again, and again, and each time, the Rhyhorn survives and finishes me off. Okay, so I'm definitely going to have to do more training. I can't believe I'm saying that. More training, yes. Raichu is at level 71 now, and I still need to be grinding. As I do this, let's just direct our eyes up to the timer. We are about to reach the 2-hour mark. In the very first solo playthrough I did in FireRed, I used the Butterfree line, starting as a Caterpie, and the time that I got was 2 hours and 7 minutes and 47 seconds. I had 20 resets, and I finished the game at level 74. There is basically no way for Raichu to beat this time now, so this is to date going to be my worst FireRed playthrough, and I guess that makes sense because Giovanni is absolutely brutal. However, now at level 73, am I going to be able to one-hit the Rhyhorn? Well, first I have to defeat the Nidoking, and in this case, I am now able to one-shot it because it has less defense than the Nidoqueen. That is a huge advantage. However, when the Rhyhorn comes out, Brick Break also gets the one hit against it. So finally, we can rejoice. Raichu has finished Giovanni and earned itself the final badge. I guess there is a bit of a consolation prize for having to be this high leveled for Giovanni, and that's the fact that I'm going to be able to easily defeat the rival before the league. Like, every one of his Pokemon is going to be a one-hit until the Venusaur comes out. I tried Return on it, and it does like a quarter. Maybe Thunderbolt will do more, and the answer is no. Then the Venusaur used Synthesis, and that's really annoying because now it's going to take me forever to knock this thing out. And it actually could have been scary if it had Sleep Powder on its moveset, but the rival is a scrub, doesn't know that Sleep is the most broken status, and of course he has the move Sweet Scent instead. Still, that doesn't make this Pokemon any less intimidating because it is doing some damage every now and again with Razor Leaf, and this takes Raichu all the way down to 5 hit points. Okay, hopefully he's not going to heal. He doesn't, I hit Return, and with that, I've made it to the league. Up first is Lorelei, and she should be quite easy. Most of her Pokemon are water types. I'm also really overleveled, so I just one-hit her first 3 team members. She sends in Lapras next. I don't one-hit it and get confused. I hit myself once before getting another Thunderbolt, which crits and finishes her ace off. Alright, all that's left is Jinx. I hit myself in confusion. It puts me to sleep with Lovely Kiss. Hits an Ice Punch. Static activates. But luckily, Raichu wakes up. Will I get through confusion? I do. Hit Return. And with that, I've defeated Lorelei. Now, we should really talk about Bruno. Yes, we have to talk about Bruno. He is so much better in Generation 3 when compared to Generation 2 even. And that's saying a lot because from Generation 1 to Generation 2, he basically became a trainer. So the first issue that Raichu has is that Bruno is going to prioritize both of his Onyxes because they know Earthquake. Unfortunately, Brick Break is physical, Onyx has great physical defenses, and it's not able to one-hit, which means that he's going to get some damage in before his fighting types come out. Now, if you examine Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee's special defense, they actually have the same stat. It's 137, which is a lot, so I figured that Thunderbolt wouldn't do as much damage as Return, but in this case, it's not enough to knock the Hitmonchan out, and it takes me down to yellow health before Hitmonlee comes in. This thing has even less physical defense, so I go for Return, but it just barely hangs on, strikes back with Mega Kick, taking me to 16 hit points. Bruno uses a full restore, but I've got it on the run, so I'm able to take it out. Now it's time for his final Pokemon, his ace, Machamp. I go for Return, it does about half. Machamp misses Rock Tomb. I hit it with another Return, taking it to red health, but this time Rock Tomb connects and Raichu faints. Alright, so that didn't seem too bad, right? Well, it can go much worse, because once I clear the second Onix, he sends in Hitmonchan, and if I'm using a physical move like Return against this thing, it can reflect the damage back at me with Counter and knock Raichu out right away. In the next battle, I'm able to make it back to the Machamp, but I still only have yellow health. Funnily enough, it actually goes for Scary Face, which doesn't lower my speed enough for the Machamp to move first against me. That is just how fast Raichu is. However, I'm not able to two-hit this thing, and as a result, it hits Cross Chop, finishing me off. So that is 3 losses against Bruno. I didn't learn my lesson about Counter previously. I was still trying to use Return against the Hitmonchan, so it's able to finish me off. In the next fight, I score a critical hit against the Hitmonlee and make it back to the Machamp, but this is a similar situation that I had previously. It goes for Rock Tomb, doing chip damage and lowering my speed. I'm still faster. I hit Return, and okay, I get a critical hit. That is perfect. So finally, Raichu has cleared Bruno. And of course now, Brick Break is going to be useless against Agatha, so it's time to teach Rest in its place. I'm coming into this fight with a Chesto Berry because it's useful for 2 reasons. If I get put to sleep with Hypnosis, then I'll wake up, and I can also use Rest to heal right away and not stay asleep. Now, Agatha is much better in FireRed than she is in the Generation 1 games because her ghosts have Levitate, which makes them so much better. Dig is essentially useless. It kind of has been throughout the whole playthrough, if we're being real. Thunderbolt and Return together have been Raichu's go-tos. I take her Arbok down, and at this point, I have -4 defense, and that's actually bad because her final Gengar knows Sludge Bomb. It goes for it, doing massive damage. But Raichu hangs on, goes for Thunderbolt, and finishes her ace off. She still does have a Haunter left over, but I just go for Thunderbolt and one-hit it anyways. And with that, I have made it to Lance. Up first, of course, is Gyarados, which is a one-hit. Then Lance sends in his first Dragonair, and I'm really hoping that this is a one-hit with Return. Okay, it is because I got a critical hit. Up against the next one, I go for Return, and it only does half. That's annoying. Dragonair uses Thunder Wave, paralyzing Raichu, and then as a result, I'm not able to move on the next turn. I take a critical hit Outrage, which does a third before I finish it off on the next turn. Okay, so now it's time for Dragonite, and I am not feeling particularly good here. It outspeeds me because I'm paralyzed. I really need to get the overlay updating my speed when this status condition is in play, by the way, so that'll come in future videos. My Thunderbolt does almost half, and at this point I think it makes sense to burn my Chesto Berry and heal with Rest. Now that I'm not paralyzed, my speed is restored, Static paralyzes Dragonite, Lance uses a full restore, restoring it to full health, and that gives me 2 more Thunderbolts, taking it back to red health before it hits an Outrage, gets paralyzed by Static, and knocked out on the next turn. Okay, so I have yellow health left over for his final Pokemon, Aerodactyl. Please, Thunderbolt, just get the one hit. And in this case, it does. So now, the only trainer that remains for me in this playthrough is the champion. Can Raichu do it, or is it going to be walled? After all, he does have Rhydon. Well, let's see. Up first is Pidgeot, and I'm not scared of this thing. Thunderbolt should just one-hit. After all, it is a flying type. And it does. Next he sends in Rhydon because it has Earthquake, which is super effective. And here I don't really have a good option. Dig is my best bet. I go for it, it does less than half. Rhydon uses Rock Tomb. Now you might wonder why. That's because the AI views this move as a speed control move, so it's trying to lower my speed so that Rhydon can move first. I figured that it would use this move again since I'm still much faster than the Rhydon, so I go for Dig, but unfortunately Rhydon's like, nah, that's enough Rock Tomb. I'm just going to use Earthquake now, and obviously that's a loss. Alright, I really wish that I was back in Generation 1, where Earthquake does not affect Pokemon when they are using Dig. I don't really have a different option to knock the Rhydon out, so I'm just basically waiting for it to choose bad moves and knock it out with Dig. That doesn't happen in the next fight, so once again Raichu faints. After that loss, I was like, maybe I should try Return, and it does like maybe a 7th, maybe an 8th, I'm not sure. It's doing very little damage. I was hoping that after this single Return, the 2 digs would knock the Rhydon out without the champion using a full restore, but it just barely survives, uses the full restore, and as a result, my speed gets trashed and it knocks me out with Earthquake. Alright, so we seem to have a problem now. Perhaps I should have unlearned Dig and kept Brick Break specifically for this Pokemon. Here, I think that my experience in Generation 1 is really a disadvantage. After all, Dig is so good in those games, and in Yellow versions specifically, ground-type moves are fantastic against the champion. However, in Generation 3 that's much less the case because Dig is only base 60 power, also Earthquake is hitting me when I'm underground, so that's really bad. So what I had started to realize in this fight is that I am waiting for a critical hit with Dig to knock the Rhydon out, and here I finally get it. Okay, so I'm thinking I'm probably home free now until the Venusaur comes out. I use Return to one-shot the Alakazam. Next is Gyarados. Obviously, Thunderbolt is just going to take this thing out in a single turn. Then I get hit by a second Intimidate when Arcanine comes out. I'm going to have to knock this thing out with Thunderbolt as a result. I take about a third in damage before it goes down, and now I have made it to the champion's Venusaur. With my lowered attack, my best bet here is Thunderbolt, even though it is resisted. It looks like it's doing about a quarter. Then Venusaur goes for Growth, not doing any damage. My next Thunderbolt gets a critical hit, taking it to orange health, and then it sets up Sunny Day and eats a Citrus Berry. Alright, so this is basically the best turn ordering for me. However, then Venusaur uses Synthesis to heal back to green health. While my next Thunderbolt does paralyze, Venusaur starts to use Solar Beam, and now it's time for me to use Rest and burn my Chesto Berry. Unfortunately for me though, Solar Beam is just doing too much damage, and with the Sun setup and the rival using full restorers, I am just barely not able to take his ace out, and Raichu goes down. So, the losses started to stack up. I now have 38 resets, and things are not feeling very good. I have now started to use a moveset that's very similar to one that I used with Jolteon against the champion in Pokemon Yellow. Thunderbolt, Rest, Toxic, and now in the case of Generation 3, I can also use the move Protect. What this allows me to do is poison the Rhydon and then use Protect to buy time while this status condition stacks up. I can also use Toxic to stall if I want, saving PP on both Rest and Thunderbolt. After all, those are probably going to be useful later on. And with this strategy, I am able to defeat the Rhydon and move on to the Alakazam. Here's the problem though, staying in the battle against the Rhydon for an extended period of time means it hits Scary Face over and over. As a result, Alakazam is able to move first and finish Raichu off. So what really needs to happen is when I knock the Rhydon out with poison damage, I need to be at high health to ensure that I can survive one hit from Alakazam and move on. Unfortunately, my Thunderbolt doesn't even one-hit it, but I do get a lucky paralysis and then finish it off as a result. Next, the champion sends in Gyarados. I only have yellow health. It uses Dragon Rage, so I survive, use Rest to heal to full, and then Thunderbolt to knock it out. So, I've made it back to the Arcanine. I get really lucky here with a critical hit that one-shots, and now I've made it back to the Venusaur. The unfortunate thing with this moveset is that Toxic obviously cannot affect it because it is part Poison type, so once again I have to rely on Thunderbolt to knock it out. The good thing about my moveset though is that Protect is actually useful here, because if it's trying Solar Beam without setting up Sunny Day, which it is, I can then just foil each one of its attacks and get free damage. Unfortunately for me, the champion used a full restore here and I misclicked on Protect. As a result, the Venusaur goes for Solar Beam and Raichu goes down. Am I going to be able to do this under 2 hours and 30 minutes? It is starting to look very unlikely. In the next battle, the same scenarios play out. I defeat the Gyarados, take more damage from the Arcanine this time, so I only have red health left over. What I'm really hoping for now is that the Venusaur just tries Solar Beam. And in this case it does, which means I get a rest off. Then it starts to use Growth. It sets up twice. I hit Thunderbolt. It switches back to using Solar Beam, which I can counter with Protect. And as a result, I am finally able to defeat the champion. So Raichu clocks in with a time of 2 hours, 27 minutes, and 44 seconds, with 40 resets at level 77. This took 7 hours and 28 minutes of game time. So considering all of the playthroughs that I've done in FireRed to this point, there are now 6 of them, Raichu is the worst. It had a significantly worse time than Butterfree, which you might find surprising. I think Raichu seems like it should be the better Pokemon, but access to Compound Eyes and Sleep Powder really helped the Butterfly. Because I have so few results so far, I'm putting each Pokemon in their own tier, and today, Raichu definitely deserves the F tier. I really hope you're enjoying this series. Up next is going to be the Pidgeot-Line, which is my early game normal flying type. I'm very curious to see how it does. After Generation 2, the introduction of Return makes normal Pokemon so much better than they were in Generation 1. I'm hoping that that's going to give Pidgeot better results than Raichu. We'll have to wait for a little while to see though, because the next video in this series is probably going to come out sometime in June. There is going to be a jam-packed release schedule for the channel in May, so stay tuned for a lot of awesome content. If you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video. Alright, now it is time for me to do a little bit of an ending ramble while we watch the rest of the credits. Of course, we are into Generation 5 Pokemon now, so thank you all so much for your support. I'm going to use these sections in the videos to tell you about a few things that I'm excited about. This is ordinarily going to be something about how I am producing the overlay or developing software, and in this case, I saw that Squidgy posted these screenshots on Twitter. This is from the Speedrunner's Choice ROM for Pokemon Crystal, and I really want to get these stats ported into all of my ROMs. So hopefully in the next few months, we will start seeing these stats tracked in all of my data. I think it's really going to be cool to see how many times I bump into walls and how many steps I take with certain playthroughs. Like how many less steps did I have in a playthrough where I got like 30 seconds faster throughout the game. It also tracks things like time in battle, the number of total battles throughout the playthrough. All of this stuff is just awesome. My intent is to port all of these properties into my own ROM, then make GameHook properties that track them so that I can get that data in real time, and then also make my live splitter record all of those metrics each time it makes a split. That way, for archival purposes and for data analysis later at the end of this project, we will have a lot of that data. Now, one thing I'm always a little bit sad about here is implementing these things partway through the series. Like, I can't just go back and collect this data for a Pokemon that I've already played, like Horsey or, I don't know, Parasect. But in the end, maybe I'll just have to repeat all those Pokemon, and that's going to give us more streamed content later on. So it looks like now we're getting to the end of the credits. I just want to say another huge thank you, and I'll see you in my next video.